About a month ago, I shared how I'm using Facebook ads to generate leads for my SEO agency for less than $100 per lead. And most of those leads are pretty damn good. Now you might ask, why am I doing this? You're good at SEO, shouldn't you be ranking your own website with SEO? And yes, the simple matter is we want to be everywhere. But if you run a service business, an agency, which is my #1 recommendation to make money online, then you have a pretty unique advantage, which is an extremely high customer lifetime value. And that gives you a lot more leverage to use more aggressive tactics like Facebook ads. Of course, SEO is still important, remains a long-term goal, but when you've got big established agencies or even publicly listed brands like SEMrush at the top for a lot of major searches, might not be your particular best path to success as an SEO agency. It seems ironic, but you really need to fit your product to the right channel. And so while for most of your clients, SEO probably is a really good opportunity, for instance, I can't see Facebook ads working really well for an emergency roofer or potentially a lot of e-com products, but for a service business, they work really well. Now, as I mentioned before, I'm going to go into a lot more detail on this in my agency training. This will include not only how you get clients, but also how you actually retain them, how you actually deliver a good service, and how you actually build a system within your agency to hire the right staff, perform the right operations, and just generally avoid creating a massive headache for yourself. After all, you want to protect your margin, and so many people who get into the agency world don't, and they end up with a tiny margin at the end of it all. So they might say they're doing $50,000 per month, but how much profit are they actually keeping back? It can often be less than $5,000 or $10,000, and that's why I'm coming out with this training now. Having run my agency now for about 3 years, you can trust me that I made a lot of the common mistakes and have worked out a lot of the pitfalls I can now fix. So how is Facebook ads actually going for me? You can see I've had 46 leads this month. We're just coming to the end of January, and that's from a spend of £2,900, so around $3,500. Now most of the most successful agencies I talk to, they're typically spending 5 figures a month on ads, but you need to warm up to that. Everyone I speak to who's an expert in Facebook ads said start small. You need to train the algorithm, train the pixel, and you want to ramp up slowly. Because if you just give Facebook a massive budget right off the bat, then think about it. If you've been offered a load of money and you're going to lose that money if you don't spend it, then of course you just spend it all over the place. And that's exactly how Facebook works. Whereas if we take the concept of Parkinson's law, work expands or resources expand to fill the time available to it. If you instruct Facebook, I am sticking with my $50 a day budget and I'm not going to be increasing it, then it's got to work harder and harder to try and get the right outcome for you. So once it's doing that really effectively, then you can start increasing it. So most experts recommend increases of 20% every couple of days. So we've been running this campaign actually since October, but most of October, very small tester budget, and we've slowly been increasing it since then. So you can see we're now up to £140 per day, but that's still not as high as I want it, because I want to get to that $10,000 a month mark. Now, common agency wisdom is you want to do heavy qualification. So most successful agency owners I speak to, they'll spend that $10,000 a month on the ads, but typically they'll only choose 1 or 2 clients out of that because they've got this huge net of potential leads, but they want an easy life, they want profitable clients, so they handpick from that. And that's what having a wide funnel actually allows you to do. Imagine if you never have to have another headache client again, and you can simply pick the best ones. But in my case, have a good team, good resources. So we've actually not gone down too far that route, and instead we've been offering far more lower ticket plans. And that's basically to illustrate for you what is potentially possible with Facebook ads. Because the problem with that method is you might find you spend 15, 20 grand before you get that dream client. And that could be a very painful learning process. So if you're just starting out, then of course you're going to be a bit more flexible in terms of who you actually take on. I would generally say if you're making less than $10,000 a month, Facebook ads might not actually be the best approach. To get up to that 10,000, you just need to do whatever you can, whether it's in-person networking, cold email. You can maybe start on Facebook ads, but realistically you're not going to be cranking that budget up too quickly. But everyone at that level I know seems to have had a different story. I ended up flying to Colombia within 2 weeks of quitting my day job in order to get my first clients and get my first 10k a month. So that early stage of first 6 figures, there's not really an exact science to it. But of course, once you get to that 10 grand a month, which might only be a couple of clients, then that gives you a lot more room to maneuver. For instance, by spending 3 grand a month on paid ads until the pixel works. So what have I actually got out of this? 46 leads for $3,500. What does that actually look like? So in my agency dashboard, we can see $60,000 of revenue in January, 9 new clients, average order $1,500. Now, of those new clients, of course, they're not all from Facebook ads, and there are some lower ticket services we offer as well. So for our purposes today, I'm just using ChatGPT with the exact clients we signed up from Facebook ads. So our total for January is $4,000. Now, at that point, you might turn around and say, that doesn't work. You've spent $3,500 on ads, you've made $4,000. are you really going to be able to fulfill all those clients and keep that $500 of profit? And the answer is, of course, not. In this first month, we are loss making. But I really don't have a problem with that, because having run my agency for a while, I've got a very good idea of customer lifetime value. And it's so surprising when you talk to other business owners how few of them actually understand their customer lifetime value. As you grow in the business and marketing world, you'll increasingly realize that the fundamental mechanism of everything is cost of acquisition and customer lifetime value. And that is literally it. It doesn't matter what the product or service is. That's all that really matters. And what experts typically agree on is that your customer lifetime value needs to be 3 times at least of your customer acquisition cost. So on the face of it, if all these clients stay on for just 1 month, then we're not making any money. However, we do seem to have actually paid for the ads. I don't think we're going to be massively in the hole. But the fact is, it's very rare for us to lose a client after just 1 month. So if we extend that out to 3 months, then we're into the $12,000 territory. But realistically, if you're reaching the right people, the right ideal customer profile, who, let's face it, is a proper business owner with a long-term outlook, wants to invest in their business, they understand the value of what you're doing, well, in that case, we're much more likely to be looking at 6 months, a year, maybe even longer than that. So suddenly that $3,500 investment becomes $24,000 or $48,000. Now, of course, this is revenue, not profit. So let's assume you're only making a 20% margin in your agency, in which case you're making a profit of around $10,000 here for that $3,500 of spend. So we're very close. We're not at that 3 times customer acquisition cost to lifetime value, but it is pretty close. And what certainly I've typically found is while plenty of clients will churn out over those first few months, those who stay with you really stay with you. And you end up with some of these super clients who stay with you for 2 or 3 years. That's where things get really interesting. So even if 8 or 9 out of 10 churn out at this unprofitable level, if that's what it takes to then get that handful who just stay with you and with you for years and years, then of course we're sorted. So that's why I'm really not bothered about this figure. I just want to increase this as much as I can sustainably so that Facebook continues to spend my budget efficiently. Now, of course, there's plenty of playing around we can do with the ads and the targeting. My number 1 recommendation, just make sure you're doing lots of different ad types at the same time, and you'll quickly identify the winners. I've done memes, I've done flowcharts, but what I found works best is just the outcome with a human element. So include a human face. That's just heuristics. If you're scrolling through social media, you're much more likely to stop if you see a person. And then you just want to show the outcome you can deliver. Your ideal clients don't want to know about how you actually do the work. They just want to know what they get if they invest with you. Now, I'm being quite conservative here, saying we'll only have a 20% margin on this, but there are plenty of agencies out there that manage to get up to 50, 60, or even a 70% margin, especially when you're looking at things like local SEO. And personally, that's much more of interest than this, because you can't really control so much your market and what Facebook is actually doing. So your customer acquisition cost, it's going to be quite difficult to actually control. But your customer lifetime value, you have a lot of control over. So you can do that by improving retention. Make sure you've got a good account manager, or if you don't have an account manager yet, make sure you are on it every day, checking in with your clients and talking to them. This took me far too long to actually understand, that you think you're in the SEO business or the marketing business, but you're not. You're in the customer satisfaction business. So you can do the best work in the world, and you know that in a couple of months' time, this client is going to be absolutely dominating. But if they haven't heard from you for a month, then that's where you run into issues with people churning out and just generally not feeling seen and heard. So really invest in that account management side of things. And then after retention, it really comes down to margin and upsells. And both of these really come down to the products you actually sell. Now, I say product there very specifically because this is another place people get stuck. So most agencies I talk to, they're kind of the consultant here in the middle, and they've got their client and they just want to be everything for that client. So they might do the website, then they run some Facebook ads, they might be doing the PPC, they're doing the SEO, they're coming up with other helpful suggestions. And basically this is all a mess and really unfocused. Now, that doesn't have to be a bad thing. I know plenty of people who stay at that consultant level and it's absolutely fine. They're happy getting up in the morning and doing that work for a small portfolio of clients. Those tend to be good, loyal clients who stick around. But if you're going into growth mode and scale mode using ads, then I'd recommend a different approach where you basically just want a couple of products that you deliver really well. And when I say that you deliver, you can basically have a team member responsible for each one. So your client could basically be over here and say, yep, I want that one, but not that one. Each of your team members here has got their SOP document, so a standard process that they can follow every time. Meanwhile, you're not stuck going around in circles over here anymore. You are just up here getting the clients. And then you sell the client, or you have a salesperson where you're basically aligning the client's needs and desires with the packages that you provide. And what this means is you can handle volume much more efficiently because you have a person responsible for each task. And when I say responsible, I mean responsible. They're the manager for that particular process. Now, how does this help with customer lifetime value? Well, over here, you've got a very bespoke model where a client can come to you and they say they want Facebook ads, they want website management, they want their GMB managed, and then you've got to come up with a custom quote for that. And then somehow you've got to fulfill on that, and it's very easy for things to get missed and the client to get annoyed. Whereas it's here, it's very clear. Let's take the example of press releases. If the client wants a press release, you then send them to your press release service. But once you've satisfied that, maybe they actually want to make it monthly, that's basically then upgraded them to the next service. Then they're getting some results and they're realizing, you're pretty good at this. What else would you recommend to improve my rankings? Well, rather than just a press release, why don't you go for our full foundation links package? We've got citations, we've got guest posts. And so each time you're enabling your client to trade up the value ladder. So you're not only retaining them, but you're increasing the value of that sale. And because you're not doing anything out of the ordinary, you can have a specialist for each one with a standard operating procedure, and that keeps costs low. Now, not only is this just smoother and more efficient, but one of the reasons it can keep costs lower is not only do you have a standard operating procedure that anyone can, but it means you have access to bulk pricing. Because if you know exactly how many of each widget you need to fulfill, then it gives you much more leverage to go to suppliers and get the best rate. So I mentioned about press releases as an example. I think press releases are a great business because we know they work, there is an SEO benefit there, but there's also just a visibility and branding benefit. So it's much easier to sell a business owner on the vision of appearing in actual newspapers. Now, I talk about how you can get press releases for $7, and people don't believe me because they'll go to AB Newswire and they'll see a single press release is $80, but that's because they're not looking at bulk pricing. So when you look at something like the quarterly subscription, $200, there's an asterisk there, so you've got to go digging through the terms and conditions. But that's where it says for $200 gives you 31 press releases. And then after 31 press releases, an additional charge of $6.50 per release is applied. So there you created an immediate bridge in terms of what you can offer versus what the client can get by themselves. Because let's not forget that the client over here has always got other options. They could do it themselves, or they could hire a freelancer to do it. So one of the advantages of an agency is you've basically got this whole machine in place, and your job is to make sure that this machine is an easier, more efficient, and arguably cheaper option than for them to do anything else. So at the basic level, you've probably got an in-house expert and you're probably paying them a few $1,000s per month, whereas this client probably doesn't need to pay you that much, nor do they have all the faff and issues with actually looking after staff. And instead they get fractional ownership. They get access to one of your A-player team members without having to actually employ someone. Then we have things like software. I know most of us in the SEO industry spend more than $1,000 per month on software. Once you've got Ahrefs, your correlational tool like Surf, and then a few other tools, you're already up to $1,000 per month. So this business owner does have other options, but suddenly the value you provide in terms of software and staff becomes much clearer. So then if you add in the volume pricing element, then this is where an agency can work out as pennies in the dollar and a no-brainer sale to the right client. And there's so many providers out there that provide agency-friendly pricing, where as you can see, the price comes down significantly as soon as you start working in volume. And that's because as a business owner, again, it's all about retention. If someone's just turned up on your doorstep, you've had to pay to acquire that customer, and there's a good chance they're not going to hang around long. And so, of course, you charge them more. Whereas if someone buys in bulk, well, you've already covered your cost of acquisition. You're only dealing with one client. So if they want to spend $5,000 with you rather than $50 with you, then of course you can offer them far more value. Just the other day I shared the Whisper WordPress plugin, which is a backlink exchange. Now their pro plan is €69 per year, so roughly $70, but they have an agency unlimited option where you can submit as many websites as you want, and that's just $350. So you break even after 5 websites. You can get one website for $70 or unlimited websites for $350. So submit 5 websites and you've made your money back. Now I've also just seen they're running a January lifetime deal. So if we look at the agency unlimited plan there, that's around $800. So you can lock in lifetime access, unlimited clients. You can put all your clients on this and just keep delivering more and more value. I said in the last video, when I used Whisper, the backlinks I got from it were easily worth between $500 and $1,000. So if I only had 8 clients and only put 8 websites on my agency unlimited plan, that's $100 per site per client. But each one of them is getting $500 to $1,000 of value. It's the same thing with a lot of heavy automation tools. I said for a long time, if you're doing CTR manipulation with something like CTR Booster, then the regular cost is around $100 a month to actually run the tool, but you can have quite a lot of clients on that same installation. Same thing with SEO Neo. In my free training where I interviewed Elias, the founder, I basically said that SEO Neo works out as quite expensive for one site. And he just pushed back and said, Yes, it's expensive for one site, but you can have unlimited clients on it. Another good example is Localo. If you're doing local SEO, this is much more about Google Business Profile management. Now, if you already have multiple clients with Google Business Profiles, you'll know the headache of going in and editing them and monitoring and making those changes. But with Localo, you can just import them all into one dashboard. And again, you can see just how drastically these prices come down from $80 per month for 5 profiles to $400 per month for 50 profiles. Now, you can't really do this sort of thing if you're trying to be everywhere. If you've only got a couple of clients who have Google Business Profiles and then a load of other clients who you're doing PPC for, then it doesn't really make sense. So if you want to scale your small agency, doing around 10k a month, and really aim for the 7-figure agency, then again, get really clear on product. What are the few things you want to deliver that can really provide transformative results for clients, that you can just deliver over and over again, and using the same SOP and the same resources every time to deliver them as efficiently as you can, so that not only is it far more worthwhile for the client to go with you rather than trying to do it themselves or get a freelancer, but also getting into a point where you can actually do it better than any other agency out there. So, a bit of a rambling one today, partly because I do have a cold and I'm suffering, but what am I really trying to get across to you? Number one, run ads. I'm spending $3,500 a month and I want to increase that rapidly. Focus on customer lifetime value. If you're losing your clients after 1 month, then of course there's something major wrong and it's not your client acquisition that's the problem. So fix your retention, fix your lifetime value, and then the ads will work for you. I am not a Facebook ads expert, and yet already you can see how my $3,500 investment translates into a significant gain over time. Meanwhile, focus on productization, so when you get clear on what you want your agency to look like, what is the service, the outcome that you provide, what is the mechanism you use to achieve it, can you get access to tools and resources that really scale well, where as an agency, by buying in bulk, you can offer unbeatable value to your clients and then keep the difference as margin. AB Newswire, for example, people easily sell these press releases for hundreds of dollars. So if you're paying just $6 or $7 per release, then you can quickly see how numbers like these get very different. So a client for 12 months might be $10,000 at a 20% margin, but if you get that up to a 40% margin, which is perfectly reasonable, then that's $20,000 in return for your mere $3,500 investment. So all of that and much more to come in much greater detail in my upcoming agency training. As usual, join the list, so we'll have a limited number of free places when it launches, so make sure you're on the list. And even if you miss the free places, then the best value, the lowest price places will go to the early birds.